It is this essential part that dying to the old plays in allowing us to evolve into the new that is expressed in the story of the fiery phoenix, whose brilliant new being is born from the flames that she herself has set to her nest and previous self. And it is this concept of giving oneself over so that they may be raised to new spiritual heights that is reflected in the words of the Taoist sage Lao Tzu when he says in the Tao Te Ching, "If you want to be given everything, you must give up everything." And it is with this understanding of the universal law of impermanence that the true prophets from the earliest times have always foretold of war, death, pestilence, and famine that would lead to the downfall of many kings and great nations. For these prophecies telling of the destruction that accompanies the end of days have been given to us to help a forgetful humanity remember the impermanent nature of our material existence, so that we may then be inspired to seek and therefore find the greater spiritual purpose of our existence. And thus, in accordance with the prophecies, the physical events that typically occur during the end of days have been designed to escalate to such a dramatic level that most of humanity will be faced with the possibility of their own death and the loss of everything that they have worked to achieve in the material world, all of which would occur for the divine purpose of shifting humanity's perspective from the physical to the spiritual. For in a world where so many are living only for material achievement and survival, it will not be until that material reality is threatened with extinction, and when money and luxury fail to satisfy our needs for peace and comfort, that the majority of people will awaken to the worthlessness of material wealth and success, and thereby be inspired to seek inwards to find a new purpose and meaning for life. And in doing so, many will finally understand the words that they have been uttering for so long, which state that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but rather we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And thus, when the events of the end of days have served their divine purpose, when the death and destruction have shaken us from our material obsession, it is this essential part that the end of days may play in assisting humanity's spiritual evolution by awakening us to the liberating law of impermanence, and thus our spiritual purpose for being, that ensures that one day an end will come. For it would appear that humanity is in need of a severe shaking to wake it up from the madness and illusions of its current existence. Thus, when the prophesied end of days reveals that everything we have come to believe and all that we have strived to achieve can be swept away in an instant, then may we realize the depth of foolishness that we have exhibited by living only to attain temporary material wealth, pleasure, and success for the self at the expense of our eternal spiritual soul. For there are many in today's world who are willingly selling their souls by taking jobs that contribute to the suffering of the earth and others in an effort to climb the ladder of success and survival, while others, whose occupations may seem more caring and considerate, are still so preoccupied with their individual pursuits of fun and fulfillment that they consistently turn a blind eye to the suffering that is caused by their willing participation in our self-destructive society. However, when the death and destruction that necessarily accompanies the end of days demonstrates the impermanence, and thus the utter futility of striving only for material gains, and when amidst the collapse of the temporary material, we come to see the strength and beauty of the eternal spirit that remains, then each of us will have the opportunity to acknowledge the truth that our purpose for existence is not to attain wealth, pleasure, and success for the self in the material, but rather we exist only to develop our spiritual selves and souls by learning to live a life that demonstrates a love and respect for all. This function of prophecy and the destruction that comes with the end of days, to awaken people to our spiritual purpose by demonstrating the worthlessness of material achievement, is revealed by the prophet Isaiah when he says, "The walls of broad Babylon will be razed to the ground, her lofty gates set on fire. Worthless now is the thing for which peoples toiled. Nations wore themselves out for a mere nothing." And though there are some whose fear of death and the end of the world as we know it will cause them to continually deny the liberating law that all that has been made will be unmade, it is important to remember here that the end of our civilization is sure to come, as it always has. And we can choose to either run from it and eventually be overtaken, or to face the fact and thereby be freed from our fears. However, in our present world, many people are simply unwilling or unable to consider the inevitability of death or destruction. While anyone who speaks aloud the universal fact that the world as we know it will one day come to an end is labeled a conspiracy theorist, freak, or fearmonger. And yet what those accusing fail to understand is that it is only by contemplating the inevitable end of ourselves and the world as we know it that we can then prepare ourselves for the eventuality. While one who is aware of the law of impermanence will also be able to bear the difficulties in life with relative peace and ease, knowing that whatever pain or discomforts they experience are sure to pass away as well. Thus we may see the essential role that the prophecies and the death and destruction that accompany the end of days play in assisting humanity's spiritual evolution by awakening us to the liberating law of impermanence. For it is through the act of facing the impermanence of our material existence that we may then awaken to the eternal nature of our spiritual path and purpose, and thereby be freed from our greatest fears. And by thus realizing the role that the end of days plays in awakening humanity to the truth of our spiritual nature, one may also realize that as long as humanity continues to believe solely in a material purpose for being, there will always be an Armageddon and an end of days.